Welcome back to Today in Atlanta Sports. It's February 9th. We did have one team in action, but first I want to say, sorry for the little 10-day layoff. I had to go watch my Bengals on a business trip in Kansas City, take care of business, punching their ticket to the Super Bowl. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, our dogs, they're going to win it. You know they're going to take it home. I don't care about the Rams pass rush, but we'll talk about that a little bit more on Friday. Today is all going to be mostly about the NBA trade deadline, which is tomorrow. I think it's 3 or 4 o'clock. I think it's 4 o'clock tomorrow. We will know if the Hawks will make any move. I think they will make a move. I don't think it's going to be a blockbuster, but let's get into some of these rumors. Starting off with Ben Simmons, he's kind of been the guy that the Hawks have been targeting for weeks now. But it looks like those have cooled down, and now we're starting to hear Simmons for Harden. That swap is a real possibility. And I'm not going to lie, I think I love that deal for both teams, as weird as that sounds.
Yeah, Philadelphia definitely needs a guard, obviously. But I think that Philadelphia's got to do everything they can not to put Ben Simmons with Kevin Durant. I mean, those are two of the best players in the NBA. One's arguably the best offensive player. One's arguably the best defensive player. It definitely benefits the 76ers. They need a guard bad. And James Harden with Joel Embiid is a scary duo. This is one of those huge blockbuster trades that really does benefit both, but I think it benefits Brooklyn more just because Brooklyn's entire problem is, they don't have enough guys to really play a damn game. Kyrie only plays half the game. Kevin Durant's hurt. James Harden feels like he's out of his prime. He's either fat, his hamstring is shot, or he just doesn't care. I don't know what it is, but the Nets are down bad.
I definitely think the rule change has affected James Harden significantly, not being able to get to the line nearly as much. Everyone thought it would affect Trae Young. I'm like, no. Like Trae Young does, kind of like he drew a lot of fouls, and his free throws are a little bit down, but he has like true skill. I'm not saying James Harden is skillless. He's still putting up pretty good numbers, all-star caliber numbers, but his main thing, it was getting to the free throw line 15, 16, 17, sometimes 20 times a game. I mean, that was like, him every night. And he was drawing really ticky-tack fouls, shooting fouls. They had to create rules around him. And finally, they just eliminated it totally. So I definitely think that's played a factor. But listen, anything is an upgrade over Ben Simmons in Philadelphia's perspective, especially James Harden. I mean, the guy's not even playing for him. So, adding any kind of all-star caliber talent like that, you're going to get substantially better. Daryl Morey, who traded for Harden in Houston, has an absolute hard-on for Harden, no pun intended. But so I think that's a good move for them. I think it's a great fit. I think, you have a guy who can play iso ball, play without Joel Embiid on the floor. They fit a lot better, mesh a lot better. They're not clogging up the paint like Ben Simmons. But like you said, I do think Ben Simmons in Brooklyn is just fantastic, especially if Kevin Durant gets healthy and Kyrie Irving can start playing all these games. Because you have two guys in Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving who can basically go one-on-one and give you 140 points a night. It's just like they're that good offensively. Ben Simmons can focus on defense. He can be that guy who pushes this team in transition. He'll be their best playmaker. So I think that's a perfect fit. It also helps them so much defensively, which they have struggled with over the last 2 seasons since, getting the big three together. So I think this is a perfect trade. I think it needs to happen. From the Hawks perspective, I probably would like it not to happen because I think it makes both teams significantly better. I think it makes Philadelphia a true championship contender. And I think it finally probably will end Brooklyn's skid that they're on, which right now has them in the play-in tournament. And I'll tell you what, who they'd be playing? Actually, no, I think the play-in tournament, but they'd have to get out of the play-in tournament, and the Hawks would very likely probably have to play the Nets. That would kind of suck. Imagine playing that in the play-in tournament. That's pretty wild that that's even a thing. But I think if they get Ben Simmons, they'll work their way back up into maybe a top 4 seed in the East. So another name that was rumored to the Hawks, CJ McCollum. He goes to the Pelicans, kind of an interesting move. And this is why I kind of hate the play-in tournament, having 10 teams make the playoffs. The Pelicans have no business making trades to make themselves better. And it's just taking away and making these bidding wars too high. I mean, I have no idea why the Pelicans are trying to trade and get better right now. They should be looking to rebuild. I guess maybe they still think fat ass Zion Williamson is coming back. I don't know what the deal is with him. It's pretty sad to see because that guy has a true talent to be a top 10 player in the NBA. But that steals a target from the Hawks, who are reportedly interested in him. I would have liked to see McCollum with Trae Young. That's very interesting to me. What are your thoughts on McCollum going to the Pels?
Yeah, I agree 100%. The Pels are they're just happy to be in the play-in tournament. Their Twitter account just posted something about them being like the 10th seed, and they were just head over heels. CJ McCollum is gonna, make them substantially better. They had a big need for somebody like McCollum. Um, and I agree with you on I don't really care. A lot of Hawks fans are maybe against the idea of trading for somebody who's brings more offense than defense to Atlanta. Obviously, we're one of the best offensive teams uh, in the association, and also one of the worst. It's clear we need somebody on defense, but offense wins games in the league. I mean, you got to put up points. And Jake Fisher, a Bleacher Report, posted that before he was traded to New Orleans, Atlanta was thinking about trading Gallo, maybe Delon Wright, Jalen Johnson, and a first-round pick for CJ McCollum. And I would have done that 10 out of 10 times. Jalen Johnson was always going to be a trade piece. He still is going to be a trade piece, in my opinion. And DeLon Wright, even though he's, pretty much the best defensive player on the second unit, I guess maybe not Big O, but at least perimeter defender. I don't care. I mean, I want offense, and it's very enticing to think about a backcourt of Trey and CJ. It's just, just like you said, everybody's trying to compete. Even if you're the 12th seed, you think you have a shot, which is just bullshit.
Yeah, I hate it. It's like, why are we playing an 82 game season for 20 teams to get in the playoffs? It literally makes no sense. It's mind boggling me. I was absolutely shocked. If anything, I thought 8 teams was too much. When it was 8, I thought it should have been something like 6, or 7, maybe with a first round bye or something like that. But I mean, it was absolutely ridiculous that they actually decided to expand it. But it's all about money. The NBA doesn't care really about how crappy the product is, because they know come April, come May, come June, you're going to be watching. No matter if there's 10 teams in the playoffs, 4 teams in the playoffs, 8 teams in the playoffs, the more games, the better. So they're down to water down their crappy regular seasons. It's a bad regular season anyway, so why not make it worse? Uh, but that's neither here. Yeah, I would have loved McCollum. I mean, you think about two of the best point guards in the NBA, Trae Young, Dame Lillard, kind of similar fits. Obviously, Young's a better playmaker. I think the Hawks have so many more pieces than the Trailblazers do, so I don't think it would be like, oh, if Lillard and McCollum couldn't do it, why could Young and McCollum not do it? Well, it's like the Hawks have a 10 times better team. They're way deeper. They have a guy like John Collins, who Portland doesn't have. They have Clint Capella, Onyeka Okongwu, Bogey, Kevin Huerter. I mean, this is a 10 times better team than the rest of Portland's surrounding roster.
Plus, Trey's completely different than Dame. I mean, even if Dame wanted to, he couldn't be anything other than a scorer. I mean, Trey can literally just become a distributor, which is something Dame has never been able to do.
I also think the Hawks desperately need a second, not even necessarily playmaker, which McCollum can do some playmaking. He'd probably be their second best playmaker on the roster outside of maybe DeLon Wright. But they just need a guy who can go get a bucket one-on-one. I mean, that's really what I think the Hawks need outside of defense. Yes, they're offensively really, really good, but there's times, especially when Trae Young's not on the floor, where it just gets really stagnant, where you're like, damn, who can get us a bucket one-on-one? And that's going to be even more prevalent in the playoffs when defense tightens up. It's harder to get these baskets. We need a guy who can go out there and, hit a mid-range jumper, create his own offense. And McCollum can do that. I mean, we've seen McCollum score 30, 40 points in playoff games. So I know people have kind of, said, and league people like, oh, he's not that good defensively. He's not even as good as Norman Powell. Shut the fuck up. Shut up. Don't give me that bullshit. If you're in the league and you think Norman Powell is better than CJ McCollum, you shouldn't be a scout. You shouldn't be an NBA talent evaluator. You should be fired from your job. I don't want to hear some bullshit like that. So that's a ridiculous take. So I would have liked to see McCollum in there. He goes to the Pels. To me, it's just like he just goes from one wasteland to another in Portland and New Orleans. I mean, you're not going to do anything with McCollum and the Pels. So it's kind of disappointing to see a talent like that just go get wasted at another organization. You'd like to see him at least go to a team like maybe the Sixers or something, I'd like to, I guess from our perspective, he stays out west to an irrelevant team, but I hate seeing NBA stars just their careers being wasted going to these crappy organizations. A weirder rumor that was dropped, I think yesterday, you wrote about it, Goran Dragic for Galinari swap. Now, this there's really nothing to this to me. If this is a deal, it's simply because the Hawks want to get Gallinari's contract off the books for the rest of the year, and not have to worry about his $5 million buyout next year, and they'll get draft compensation. I would almost guarantee they'll get a first round pick. Now the question is, if you're giving Gallinari away and you're getting a first round pick, are you trying to parlay those first round picks? Because now you got like 4 or 5 of them from Cam Reddish trade and stuff like that. Are you trying to parlay those into a bigger deal? Or are you just kind of punting on the season and just collecting assets and looking towards the future? I think the Hawks are kind of at a crossroads here. They have a lot of opportunities because there's so many competing teams to accumulate assets and look towards the future, or push their assets in and go for it now when they're a 10 seed and they might not even get out of the playoff tournament by the end of the year.
Yeah, I think it boils down to the championship window in terms of not the length of the window, but where the Hawks are in the window. They're in the early stages of this championship window. It would be pretty naive to think that Schlink is even considering going all in. I think it's much more likely that he would punt on the season, even with Tony Ressler. I mean, Ressler is an avid owner in terms of, I want to win and I want to win now. I'm not paying all this money not to win. So I don't see the Dragic thing being anything other than, Schlink doing his due diligence. Even if he did pull the trigger on something like that, I agree with you. We spoke about this yesterday, that it would be something similar to just acquiring assets, maybe even buying out Dragic and letting him go. The Hawks don't really have a place for him. I mean, we don't have any backcourt minutes to really give out. Lou Williams isn't even getting minutes. I mean, Dragic is 38 or 35 or 36 years old. The Hawks just don't have a place for him.
No, yeah, I don't think Dragic would be in their plans. I mean, maybe he would. I mean, he was decent in Miami, over the last couple of years, but he fell out of favor in Toronto. I see that just being as, getting an asset and a first round pick for Galinari, but I just don't see that as a very likely trade. I've heard a lot of rumors about Galinari being moved for over the last several weeks, and I do think the Hawks are interested in trying to perhaps get rid of his contract and get a first round pick for him. But I just think Gallo, at the end of the day, a lot of people don't love him. His game's not sexy, but he's still a solid piece. He still helps this team win. He helps the second unit out a lot. I mean, you talk about, when Trae Young's off the floor, who's going to get those baskets? A lot of the times it's Galinari, and especially if you go back to last year's playoff run, I mean, pretty much a lot of those games, we were stagnant, and Gallo came in and hit, 3 or 4 threes that were like completely contested, but that's like his game. He can get those shots off and make them. So I think Gallo, that's why he still, with the kind of not a great contract, can still, get a first round pick for another team because he has value. He's still a good player. So unless the Hawks are punting on the season or parlaying those first round picks into a bigger deal, I just don't see them dealing Gallinari. It just doesn't seem smart with me. I think the Hawks have played well enough to, at least get some confidence in the ownership and the group that this team can compete in the playoffs. I mean, I still think, even if you get in the play-in tournament, I know it kind of sucks because it comes down to like 1 or 2 games, and anybody can win, 1 or 2 games in the NBA. Worst team against the best. But if the Hawks can get out of that play-in tournament, nobody was going to want to play them. I mean, especially if they're healthy. I mean, this is a dangerous team in a 7-game series with Trae Young. If you have Trae Young, I always say this: if you have a superstar, especially a guy who can drop 50 like Trae Young, you can win a 4-game series against pretty much anyone because he's liable to get hot, and you can't stop him. And the Hawks have a good enough roster around him to win a 4-game series against pretty much damn anyone in the NBA. There's not really any super teams like we kind of thought looking at Brooklyn early in the season. That's going to be really tough. Now, I'm not scared of Brooklyn. There's nothing that scares me about Brooklyn. Maybe if they get Ben Simmons and get hot. But right now, I think everybody's beatable. So I think the Hawks have played well enough. I think punting on the season would be stupid. So let's talk about 2 guys that are still on the market and the Hawks have shown interest in. More 3-and-D players, except their 3-point percentages aren't great this year. Jeremy Grant, Marcus Smart. I'm a big fan of getting Marcus Smart here. I think he's exactly the kind of tough, veteran, edgy defender that this team needs that could really, change. I mean, you see how many wide open, open threes just from lazy, not focused defense that the Hawks give up on a nightly basis. I think bringing in Marcus Smart, obviously his individual defense helps, but just his attitude towards the defensive end. that he will bring to the whole team, which would be game changing. The unfortunate part, though, I'm looking at the standing last night. The Celtics won 6 in a row. They're about to get outside the play-in tournament. Why the hell would they deal the Hawks Marcus Smart? I don't see that as being a realistic situation.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen at all. I love the idea for the exact reason. I was going to say that exact word. Marcus Smart brings the attitude that Nate McMillan wants on the defensive end. Nate McMillan was a dog when he was a player. He wasn't the most skillful guy. He was a hustle guy, and that's exactly who Marcus Smart is. It would make the Hawks so much better. I don't see Boston doing it. And Boston's the type of team that doesn't trade anybody unless they absolutely feel that they're like taking advantage of the other team. Honestly, I don't know why they do that, but
Well, I mean, it's pretty good business practice if you can keep fleecing other teams.
I guess, but it seems kind of pretentious. It seems like it's like I want to imagine Schlink when general managers offer these absurd trades. I want to know how, because if he's a vulgar kind of guy, I guarantee you he's saying "fuck you," like don't
Yeah.
even talk to me, dude.
Oh,
But yeah,
I,
back to go ahead.
I was agreeing. I think that's probably how a lot of those conversations go when you call the Celtics up for a trade. Like hang up the phone, fuck you. Yeah, I don't want to even talk about this deal anymore.
Yeah, I don't think a Marcus Smart trade happens. I don't think a Jeremy Grant trade happens, and I think you pointed to the exact reason as why is the Hawks are playing much better. I think they've won last night. It was 9 of their past 12. I think they run, or 8 of their past 11, something like that. So they're definitely trending upwards. They're finally healthy. They're finally getting minutes with the rotations that McMillan wants to see. And Schlink went on 92.9 the game. I think maybe it was Tuesday morning. And basically, we sit here today. I don't really feel we need to do anything. Obviously, if a trade pops up and he sees it makes them better right now, then I'm sure he'll pull the trigger. But compare it to a month ago when he was like, "We're in trouble and I need to shake this roster up." It's a totally the waters are completely different now. I wouldn't be shocked at all if Atlanta didn't make a single trade. And if they do make a trade, it's going to be for a mid-level guy. It's not going to be for somebody that Hawks fans get excited about. Honestly,
See, well, my thing is, I think Jeremy Grant is a mid-level guy. I don't think he's requiring much on the market. He's getting paid $20 million, and yeah, he's averaging 20 points a game, but he's averaging 20 points a game on a bad team. I don't think anyone thinks that he's like. I mean, maybe he's worth the 20 mil, but he's a pretty like. I'm pretty sure if someone trades for Jeremy Grant, you're talking about like a protected first round pick. It's not going to be like anything big. Like I would assume a trade for Jeremy Grant would look like something like Danilo Gallinari and a protected first round pick or something like that. Maybe not even that. I mean, that could be maybe they give, this is why the Hawks are willing to trade Gallinari. Pick up an extra first round pick and throw it to the Pistons, something like that. I think that's a very good possibility. I just don't think he's worth that much. I think he's a solid 3-and-D player, but he's not, the 20 point a game scorer that he's playing for the Pistons. I mean, if you look at his efficiency numbers, they're pretty awful because the Pistons ask him to do too much. Like that's not really the guy that he is. You go back to his days in Denver before in OKC, he's a 12 point a game scorer, but he's shooting 48% from the field, 40% from three. That is what the Hawks are looking for, not the guy who's shooting 42% and 20 points a game. So I don't think he's going to fetch a big in the trade market. So maybe the Pistons don't deal him. They don't like, they think that they should get more. If I'm the Pistons, I don't know why I wouldn't shed the salary, get whatever I can for him. So I do think Grant is going to get dealt at the trade deadline. If not, but who knows? The Pistons could just be terribly run. They're obviously awful. But I do think Grant will get dealt. I do think it's someone the Hawks are interested in. But I think it could be a good deal for him. I just don't see where he fits unless you move Gallinari because there's only so many minutes to go around. And right now the Hawks have enough players. So it's like, unless you're moving some of these guys, I don't know how you bring in another guy who's going to play 25, 30 minutes.
Yeah. I think the roster as it stands right now is the roster we go into the playoffs with, especially after Schlink's radio interview yesterday. I mean, he seems as if he's satisfied with where the Hawks are currently at.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, one other thing before we talk about predictions, but you basically already gave your prediction. John Collins, obviously still in trade rumors. The Hawks have been, kind of dangling him out there. I never thought the Hawks were going to deal Collins unless they got, the superstar they wanted in return. Let's say a Ben Simmons, maybe a Bradley Beal before he got injured. But I don't think he's going anywhere. And I don't think it was ever like the Hawks saying they don't like John Collins. I think they just realized, hey, is Collins a piece that gets us over the hump? Probably not. But is he our best trade chip? I always thought that's what it was. John Collins has a ton of value around the league. He's at 25 mil is a good price for what he brings to the table. He can be the number 3 on a championship team. He can be a guy that if you're rebuilding, you can start to build around. But I do understand, if you're trying to get a Bradley Beal or a Ben Simmons, you're going to have to include something good. So that's the only reason why I thought Collins would, possibly be moved. With the blockbuster deal becoming less and less likely, I don't think there's any way Collins is moved. I don't care how many teams are interested. We're not trading him to the Mavs for some bullshit. We're not trading him to the Wizards for some crap. Like, that's not happening. We're not just looking for picks. We're looking for a piece to take us over the hump. And I don't think that's coming. So, I think Collins stays past. And in my predictions, I'm not going to go. I do think the Hawks make a move. And I think I can't even tell, because I've looked it around, and I like Derek White. I like Marcus, maybe Derek White, something like that. I could see something like that. Marcus Smart, I obviously said, doesn't make a lot of sense because I don't see the C's dealing him. I could see Jeremy Grant as a 3-and-D player, but I just think it's going to be a small move. I would be shocked if they stood totally pat.
I mean, Jeremy Grant is literally already what we have. I mean, he might be a little bit better than what we have, but he doesn't do anything differently for us.
Well, he's a significantly better defender than Danilo Galinari. I think that's what you're missing.
Yeah, but first of all, I don't think Gallo is that bad of a defender.
He's not that bad.
He's not that bad.
He's awful. He's awful.
No, he's not. No, he's not.
Go look at any defensive metric from Danilo Gallinari.
I don't need a defensive metric to tell me what I saw in the playoffs. He was one of the best 5 defenders on the team in the playoffs.
No, he was not. He played okay. He played okay at times. Defensively. He's still a very bad defender. There's no doubt about it. Jeremy Grant as over his NBA career has been a very, very good defender. You are getting a tremendous upgrade defensively in Jeremy Grant over Danilo Gallinari. Now, are you getting a better offensive player? Probably not. But do they need a better offensive player? That's the question. I think I would go with Grant over Gallo. I'd give Gallo and a protected first-round pick to get Grant. I think that's a decent upgrade right there. And I could see something like that happening. But I don't think it's going to be a huge move. And I don't think that moves the needle a ton. But I do definitely think the Hawks get better with that move.
I'm about to just put some. So
I mean, you're not.
Just listen.
You're not going to put anything on there.
This season, per 100 possessions, Danilo Gallinari has the same exact defensive rating as DeAndre Hunter.
Bro, can I tell you something? Defensive rating might be the worst possible thing to
it's
use.
The first thing. It's the first thing that I found, and I'm just telling you that. He's all it is. It's not good, but a lot of people say that DeAndre Hunter is this incredible defensive player, and I think he is. I'm just saying Gallo is not that bad at defense. He's not that bad.
Awful. He's awful. Watch this. You want to pull up some real stats that'll tell his defense? I'll give you them. Let me pull them up real quick. What do you think his defensive raptor is? If it's below 1, he sucks. But it's probably going to be below -1. But I bet you it's -4.
Okay, go ahead. Compare it to
-2.3. -2.3.
Compare it to some of the other Hawks players.
-2.3. That's probably worst on the Hawks, I would say.
No way. Trey is by far the worst.
Oh yeah, probably Trae Young. Trae Young's 3.3. That's what you're talking about. Trae Young and Danilo Gallinari. Hunter's plus 0.05. Capella plus 1.3. Who do you think is a bad defender on the Hawks? I mean, Bogey.
I think Bogey's Kevin Huerter's not a good defender. He hasn't been good this year, at least.
Hurt is negative 0.09. So Danilo Gallinari is the
Right
worst.
there. I mean, people
Negative
aren't.
2.3 and negative 0.9 are not anywhere
All
close.
I'm saying is he's not that bad. Like, I don't think he's that bad.
He was one of the 20 worst defenders in the NBA that qualify.
Is
I don't
that
understand.
bottom 20?
Yes. Like I don't
He
understand why you're
turns
saying
it on in the playoffs. I saw what I needed to see in the playoffs.
yeah. I don't know. I liked his toughness in the playoffs, like against Joel Embiid, because we had nobody
Dude,
to guard him.
he literally plays like Dirk. I mean, he's literally slow as hell, but he get like his defensive effort on the like I don't
I
care.
like don't know where you're coming up with these ridiculous statements, but like I just hope
How does he not play like Dirk?
But I hope nobody listens to this ridiculousness. Dude,
I do not think Gal is that bad at defense.
Gallinari. I like Gallinari.
My whole point is this. Jeremy Grant doesn't do anything differently. He's a different player than Gallo, but he doesn't give us anything more than DeAndre Hunter or any of our other forwards. That's what I'm saying. He's just more of the same. He's more of the same. That's my point.
I don't think he moves the needle. I don't think he is anything special. So, like, if that's what you want me to say, yes. Do I think he's a better defensive player than Danilo Gallinari? Without
That's
a doubt.
not what I'm saying. I'm saying we are just accumulating more of the same. He's the same wing as DeAndre Hunter. I mean, he's the same guy.
He can play power forward. Like you'd be bringing him in as the backup four with playing some wing defense here and there. Like that's what you'd be playing him there. Listen, I don't think it moves the needle, but I just had to say that is a ridiculous take that Danilo Gallinari is not a bad defender. That's
he's
all.
Not a bad defender.
You're right. He's fucking awful.
When the crunch time comes and we're watching these games together, I'm going to strangle you when he comes up with some big stops.
Don't even like. I want him to I know what you're talking about. Like he showed some chops.
Yes,
but he's a
savvy vet.
Overall, he was awful. Like, listen, here's my thing. You know when he showed some chops? He showed some chops.
Shut down Giannis.
No, he did not. He showed some chops against Joel Embiid and Giannis, guys that cannot like shoot the ball really. You know, I mean, Joel Embiid kind of can, but like you're basically giving him those shots because you know you can't stop him in the post. He showed some chops against those guys because he's so slow and he can't move. The problem is he's not usually playing those guys. He's usually defending a much smaller like guy who just blows by him 85% of the time.
Don't tell me he sucks because I know he sucks, but he did so well against Julius Randle. I mean, so well. But Julius Randle was coming in as like this big savior for New York, and everybody thought everybody shut him down on the Hawks. DeAndre Hunter shut him down.
Yeah, I mean those are the kind of guys that I think Gallinari can guard because you know because he can't move. But overall, he's not a good defender. I'm not going to argue about this anymore. I want to have one last topic. We're switching gears here before we end this episode. It's Freddie Freeman. Heyman reported last week that the Yankees are expected to make a strong push for him once the lockout ends. And then, you know, I think it's Andy McCollum, athletic reporter for the Dodgers, kind of hinted at Dave Roberts, and David Roberts himself in a quote was saying like, yeah, I've been doing some recruiting. Like, you know, I've definitely made some phone calls. I think he even like said like during the lockout, he's been making some phone calls, letting him know like, hey, like we really, 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 really want you. And the guys that he specifically mentioned were Freeman, Correa, and there was one other one, but I can't remember. But Freeman, obviously, as
Chris Bryant.
Chris Bryant. Let's just put it this way. The Yankees scare me. Obviously, their pockets are deep. But nothing has really ever made me believe that he's going to go to New York unless they offer him something ridiculous, which as much as the Yankees have spent over the years, they've been a little more frugal in recent years. They haven't been offering these ridiculous contracts because they've watched how they've kind of, you know, not worked out. So I don't expect them to go over the top and make this ridiculous offer like they have in the past for Freddie Freeman. So I don't see him going to New York. But the Dodgers scare me. He's a SoCal boy. Obviously, they're the biggest threat in the National League to the Braves. They have the deepest pockets of any team, and they have an opening in first base. So if the Braves and I can see Freddie being pissed. I mean, I'd be pissed too. The fact that this isn't, he's done everything for them and he isn't getting the best deal possible and there are other teams offering him more money, that would piss me off. And if there's a perfect storm to really give a good FU to the organization, go back home and play on a team that's going to be competing for championships to end his career on a bigger contract that's offering the Braves. I mean, how do you not accept that?
I think that the circumstances of the lockout are a little, if the Braves didn't win the World Series, I think that, and then we were going through the same scenario where, like, Anthopoulos didn't want to give him that 6th or 7th year, whatever it is. And then Freeman was hurt by that and then, wanted to go to the Dodgers. I could see that, but he just won a World Series. I don't think he tarnishes his entire Braves legacy. I mean, he is going to be the most hated man in Atlanta for at least a year. At least a year.
So I don't think he will. See, I think him getting that World Series, there's no way anyone looks bad upon Freeman. Like, I think there'll be people that'll be like, oh, damn, like, what? But I think the only people that are going to be hated are Liberty Media and Alex Anthopoulos for not getting a deal done. I think everyone understands Freeman's worth a considerable amount of money. Everyone thinks he's going to deserve whatever contract he receives from the team as far as Atlanta's concerned. And while, yes, there would be a slight like, oh, you really had to go to the Dodgers. Like, you won the World Series, the first one since 1995. You helped us do that. And, we didn't give you what you deserve. I don't think there's going to be a lot of animosity towards Freedom if he makes that deal at all.
I think you're underestimating the intelligence of this fan base. I mean, they're idiots. They don't know where to direct their anger. Even if, you're right, they're not going to be able to differentiate between.
I think they hate ownership so much that, like, it doesn't matter that they won a World Series. Like, they are always looking for an opportunity to tell Liberty Media to go fuck themselves. And this would be the perfect opportunity for them to do this. And if they don't resign Freddie Freeman, I mean, I'm also kind of gauging by the responses I've gotten from the articles that I've written, from the things that I've said on Twitter. Like, there's no one thinks Freddie Freeman is in the wrong here for trying to get as much money as they can. Nobody thinks, like, no one said, like, one time has it ever been said, and I've mentioned him going to the Dodgers several times. No one's once said, oh, if he goes to the Dodgers, I'll never be able to like him. I'll hate him. It's always been like, if Liberty Media lets him go to the Dodgers, we're going to be outside of the Battery with pitchforks. That's been the reaction.
I think it boils down to legacy for Freeman. That's what I think. I don't think he's going to tarnish all of this. I think he will literally take a shorter deal just to retire. I mean, this is maybe a little optimistic of me thinking this, but I think legacy matters to him. And obviously he's from Southern California, like you mentioned, and all those things about the Dodgers. But I mean, he's been a Brave his entire life.
I think I think you're right. 100% it matters to him. He's made that very clear, but I don't think his legacy gets tarnished if he accepts a bigger deal from the Dodgers. I don't think it does.
I think it absolutely does.
I don't see it. I don't think it. Listen, personally, I would like, and I'm talking about for my own thing. I wouldn't be mad. This is a business, man. And if they offer him more money to go back home, I don't, and like the Braves have been, and let's be honest, the Braves have definitely been playing some hardball here. This has been a standoff and like neither side is budging. And, now we're, spring training is supposed to start in a week. I know it's obviously not going to start on time, but we're in February of 2022. The guy's still an unrestricted free agent. They gambled. They gambled here with one of the biggest stars that's ever come into Atlanta sports. And that in itself is a little, not rude, but, just like kind of disrespect towards Freeman. This is something that should have already been done. They've kind of been lowballing him the whole process. So I just don't see Freeman getting a lot of hate no matter where he goes, because I feel like everyone's just going to blame ownership, blame Alex Anthopoulos. And here's the craziest part about it. If he goes and gets this 6-7 year deal that he wants, I don't even think it's like ownership's fault either. Like, I think the Braves might have made the right decision not giving him 6-7 years, and Freeman made the right decision taking the most money and the longest contract for security. I think both sides end up doing the right thing for their respective parties, and people are just going to be mad no matter what.
I wanted to say this a lot, and there are some parallels to the Julio Jones contract situation from a few years back. Julio has the same place in Falcons fans' hearts as Freddie has in Braves fans' hearts. They're both, legends for the city of Atlanta. And the Falcons just buckled under pressure and were like, yeah, we'll give you all this money. It doesn't matter what the future holds.
Yeah.
We're just trying to win now. And the Braves management don't act like that. I think I think you nailed it right on the head. It's right for the Braves not to give him the money, and it's right for Freeman to do right by himself and go, play out the rest of his career with the most amount of money possible. So I think it's just difficult.
I have an article. I actually forgot that I had already written it. I wrote it yesterday for today. I don't know if it'll drop today or tomorrow, but it basically just talks about that. Listen, I don't think money is the issue in this Freeman negotiations. I think the Braves budget, it's continually gone up. And listen, Freeman's only in line for like a $7 million raise. So it's not like we're giving him like a $30 million jump. Like we were already paying him 23 point whatever last year. Now he's looking at like 30 million AAV this year, maybe even less than that. So we have the money to budget him into the thing. It's like, but when you look 5, 6, 7 years down the road and you got to pay Ozzie, Ronald Acuna, Austin Riley, got Max Fried, guys that you're going to want to keep having on this team, it's going to be almost impossible to keep all of those guys together. But it becomes 100% impossible if you have a 37-year-old Freddie Freeman who's hitting 260 with 20 bombs, making 35 mil. So there is a situation. There's a reason why Alex Anthopoulos isn't going to bid against himself. So until a team comes in and gives him that offer that he's looking for, I do think, just like Josh Donaldson did a couple years ago, Freeman will come back and give the Braves, the final offer. Like, let's say the Dodgers say, here's 6 years, $200 million. He'll come back to Atlanta and say, hey man, like if you can't get to this point, maybe it's 6 years, 190 mil or 6 years, 185 mil. I do think there'll be a discount, but it won't be huge. If the Braves can't get of that, they'll have the last say, and then that'll be it. That's how I think the negotiations will go down, unless the relationship is that strained throughout this process. But I think the Braves will get the last opportunity, and I think there's a number that they're just probably not willing to go past. And if I trust Alex Anthopoulos, and I think whatever that number is, it's probably a good thing, as much as it'll hurt to let him walk, especially if it's to the Dodgers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that wraps it up for this episode. A little bit longer than usual, but we had a lot to catch up to. We should have some trade news in the coming days. We'll be back tomorrow with this. If we do have a trade break, I'll do a rapid reaction, give my thoughts on it. So we got a lot of stuff coming up. Enjoy your Wednesday, and we'll be back tomorrow.